નમસ્કાર, હું આદર્શ છું. વેલકમ ટુ આદર્શ એજ્યુકેશન સોસાયટી. Welcome students to 8th part of 14th chapter, How Big, How Heavy of Standard 5th Mathematics. In the last part we discussed about three boxes in which the capacity of the box we can say, or how many 1 centimeter small cubes can be filled in it. That is what we discussed in the last part. Now in this part we are going to discuss something new, something else than that, and that is trek to Gangotri. It is trek to Gangotri, which is available on the page number 197. So open that page and let's go for that. The students of class 12 are going on a trek to Gangotri. They have to pack their bags for 6 days and keep them light. Why? Because they are going for the trekking. That is why. See, the trek for 6 days. So for that, they have to pack their bag for 6 days. What they will take for that will be for 6 days. But on the other hand, the bag should remain light, with less weight. They also have to take things that do not take too much space. So they will look for things that have both less volume and less weight. After all, they will carry their own bags while climbing the mountains. Each person has to carry his own bags while climbing the mountains. They even dry the onions and tomatoes to make them light. So, to make the things light, what they did do? They dried the onions and tomato. 1 kilogram of onions or tomato become 100 gram when the water inside dries up. 1 kilogram of onion or 1 kilogram of tomato becomes 100 gram only when the water inside dries up. The list of food each person will need for 1 day. This is a list for 1 day each person will need. Let's see. See, rice 100 gram, flour 100 gram, pulses 1/3 the weight of rice and flour. 1/3 the weight of rice and flour. Oil 50 gram, sugar 50 gram, milk powder 40 gram, tea 10 gram, dalia for their breakfast, so it is 40 gram, salt 5 gram, dried onions 10 gram, and dried tomatoes also 10 gram. So this is what they will require for 1 day. 1 day requirement this is. Okay, now some questions are there on the page number 198. Let's see that. For 6 days, each person will need. For 6 days, each person will need rice and flour. Let's see, pulses and dried onions. So this is for 6 days. For 6 days, each person will need how many? For that, let's see. So for A, let's solve this A. Question A. Let me change the pen so that I can show it to you very properly. So rice and flour. Rice and flour. Now for 1 day, rice is required 100 gram, है ना, 100 gram, and this is for 1 day. So for 6 days it will be required 6 times, isn't it? So this is for rice, and flour also required 100 gram, and for 6 days, that is 100 into 6. So 600 plus 600 is equal to 1200, isn't it? So for 6 days they will require 1200 gram of rice and flour. Now pulses, that is dal. Pulses. Now pulses is required 1/3 the weight of rice and flour. Pulses is required 1/3 the weight of rice and flour. Now for 6 days, rice and flour required 1200 gram. Pulses is required 1/3 the weight of rice and flour. So the weight of rice and flour is 1200 gram, and its 1/3, that is 1/3, is equal to 400 gram, isn't it? So pulses will be required 400 gram. Then dried onions. Dried onions. You can see dried onions require 10 gram. So for 6 days, this is for 1 day is 10 gram. So for 6 days it will be 60 gram, isn't it? It will be 60 gram. Then okay, so these are the things which they require for these 6 days. Now question B is there. How much of fresh tomatoes should be dried for 6 days for 10 people? Try to understand this question. How much fresh tomatoes should be dried for 6 days for 10 people? Now we know that dried tomatoes of 1 person for 6 days. First of all, B. This is B. Dried tomatoes of 1 person for 6 days. Dried tomatoes of 1 person for 6 days. Now for 1 day it is 10 gram. 1 day it is 10 gram. So for 6 days it will be 60 gram or not? 60 gram tomatoes for 1 person. So if we find out for 10 person, so dried tomatoes for 10 person for 6 days is equal to, see, this is 1 person 6 days 60 gram. So 10 person for 6 days, that is 60 multiplied by 10 is 600 gram, isn't it? So 10% will require 60 gram of dried tomatoes, isn't it? Now fresh tomatoes needed for 100 gram dried tomatoes is 1000 gram, isn't it? Fresh tomatoes. See, if we want dried tomatoes 100 gram, okay, 100 gram, then we require fresh tomatoes is equal to 1000 gram. Okay, so if we want 100 gram of dry tomatoes, we require 1000 gram of fresh tomatoes. But here we require 600 gram of dry tomatoes, isn't it? We require 600 gram of dry tomatoes. For that, how many fresh tomatoes we require? So 600 gram, this is 600 multiplied by 1000 divided by 100, isn't it? This 100. So m is equal to 6,000 gram. Now 6,000 gram is equal to what, you know? 6,000 gram is equal to 6 kilogram, isn't it? You must be aware of this. Okay, so 6 kilogram of fresh tomatoes we require, isn't it? Now the next question, C. What is the total weight of food for 6 days? See, we know that this is the 1 day weightage, but we don't know the total of this all. But after all, they have to take the bag for 6 days. So what is the weight of the total for 6 days of the food? So let's find out. For that, see, this is the name of the item and this is weight for 6 days. Now rice and flour, we find out that rice and flour is required 1200 gram, isn't it? Rice and flour 1200 gram, or we can say 1200 gram. Then after, the pulses is 1/3 the weight of rice and pulses, that is what we find out, 400 gram. So here it should be 400 gram, isn't it? Then after, oil, you can see oil is required 50 gram for 1 day. So for 6 days it is 300 gram. So oil is 300 gram, isn't it? Then sugar 50 gram. So once again it will be for 6 days 300 gram, isn't it? Then milk powder, for 1 day it requires 40 gram. So for 6 days, 6 4 is 24, 240 gram, isn't it? Then tea, that is tea powder. Tea is 10 gram. So for 6 days it will be 60 gram, isn't it? Then it is dalia. Dalia is 40 gram. So 6 4 is 240. For 6 days the dalia is 240 gram, isn't it? Then salt. So for 1 day salt requires 5 grams. So for 6 days it is 30 gram. Dried onions 10 grams. So it is 60 gram. And dried tomatoes also 60 gram. Okay, now we have to find out the total. Go for this total and you will find 2,890 gram. The total will be 2,890 gram. So total, the total weight for food in each person's bag, will be 2,890 gram. That is 2 kilogram and 890 gram. So it is around less than 3 kilos, something like that. Okay, so with this we are ending this part, and do this activity, try to solve all this with yourself, and we'll meet you in the next part. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Take care of yourselves and we'll meet you in the next session. Thank you.